Xiangli Yao has been out for about a week now, and he's already one of the most useful characters on my account. His whole kit flows really well and has some really fast rotations. So I want to talk a bit about Changli Yao, go over his abilities, talk about some advanced moves that I've found within his kit, and then give my final thoughts on him as a character. I will also touch on his weapon and if I think it's worth picking up. So let's start off by going over his abilities. His basic attack chain is a fast combo of 5 basic attacks that repositions you with a kick for basic attack 4. This is going to be the least used part of your rotation unless you need to build energy or you're soloing. He has 4 different skills and you'll hear me refer to them as skill 1, skill 2, alt skill 1, and alt skill 2. Skill 1 is your basic skill. It's very fast, has a short cooldown of 5 seconds, generates about 40% of your forte if it hits a target, and it hits almost immediately after you use it, so it can be not only a great and accurate parry tool, but also weaves very easily into your rotation. Skill 2 doesn't have a cooldown and instead requires you to have full forte gauge. When it's used, it will reposition you to the current target, do a single hit, and leave you in the air. You can follow this up with a single basic attack, which will do a multi-hit combo before slamming down to the ground. The final hit of this combo allows you to attack out of it without interrupting the last hit from going off. The heavy attack can be used as a replacement for the first attack in your basic attack combo. You're likely never to use this as it's slow and doesn't really flow too well. However, if you're on Void Thunder, it is needed to get the other 15% electro damage bonus stack. If you're unsure about what I'm talking about, I'll leave a link to my other video in the description where I explain why. However, later I will give my recommendation on the best time to weave this heavy attack into your rotation. So let's move on to our liberation. Your liberation will slow down all enemies, making them move at a fraction of their normal speed for a short period of time and cause you to enter the liberation state. It will give you 3 hypercubes that you'll see spinning around Changli Yao, and we'll talk about exactly what they do in a little bit. Your skill will change to alt skill 1, and it has a separate cooldown from your skill 1. So after casting liberation, you can immediately use your skill. The reverse is also true. Your skill 1 will be off cooldown once your liberation ends, even if you just used your alt skill 1 before it ended. Your basic attack chain will change to a simple 3-part combo while you have at least 1 hypercube. The first part will generate 1 part of your forte, the second will generate 2, and the final part of the combo will also generate 2. The full combo will fill all 5 parts of your alt's forte, provided the attacks hit an enemy. If an attack misses, it will not generate forte. The other thing in your alt that generates forte is your alt skill 1. It's very similar to how your skill 2 works, except it does a multi-hit combo that leaves you in the air, where you can follow up with a basic attack and do the aerial multi-hit combo before slamming back to the ground. The initial part of your alt skill 1 will generate 2 forte regardless of if it hits an enemy or not. However, the follow-up attack must hit an enemy in order to generate the last 3 parts of your forte gauge. Your alt skill has a slightly longer cooldown of 7 seconds, but during your liberation, you can always get this off at least twice. One thing I'll point out is both follow-up attacks for your skill 2 and alt skill 1 are exactly the same attack called revamp. When your forte is full, your skill will change to alt skill 2, which is a single cast and will again slow down all the enemies in the area and do a good amount of small AoE damage to the enemies in front of you. This attack will consume all of your forte and 1 of your hypercubes. Once all hypercubes have been consumed, you will exit your liberation state. His liberation state lasts a fairly long time and will almost never run out on you before you can get all of its damage off. However, it can run out. 2 good ways to tell how much longer you have in your liberation. Your forte gauge will start to flash a few seconds before it ends, and you can also look at your liberation cooldown. The duration of the liberation state is 24 seconds seconds. The cooldown of your liberation is 25 seconds. So once your cooldown reaches 1 second remaining, your liberation state will end. His outro skill is very good at assisting incoming Resonator's basic attacks with off-field electro damage. This can occur 3 times total, once every 2 seconds. However, it also has a time limit and will fall off after 8 seconds. His intro skill is just an intro skill. It puts you in the air before slamming down to the ground. However, unlike Jiyan's intro, you can't dodge out of it or wait in the air if the enemy is doing an attack. So if you're not careful, this can get you into trouble if you switch at the wrong time. That's the basics of his kit. So let's talk about some advanced things that you can do with his kit that I've found. If you're looking to go for style, the last hit of his basic attack combo is a short-ranged laser shot that can parry parryable attacks from a distance. His skill 2 and ult skill 1 can be used to dodge a lot of low to the ground attacks and also some ranged attacks in the game. And his skill 2 will also move you to the target enemy over some very long distances, even if the target is up in the air. This can be used to either avoid some attacks, and also it can parry some attacks before you typically should be able to. Lastly, for those using Void Thunder, if you try to do a heavy attack but then immediately cancel it with your skill 1 before using your liberation, you will get both stacks from the Void Thunder set without wasting a lot of time. You can try to weave this into your kit in a way that makes sense to you, but how I would do it is I would either use Echo skill, heavy attack, skill 1, ult, or if you like quick swap, heavy attack, skill 1, echo skill, swap. Don't take my word for it on the quick swap though. I don't typically play quick swap, so there might be better rotations out there for you to use. I'll give a demonstration of my idea for his Void Thunder rotation.
Complete overhaul. Pierce through the stars.
But that's everything that I know about his kit. So let's talk about his pros and cons, and we'll talk about the pros first. Changli Yao having so many skill uses can always take advantage of things that will buff you based on when you use a skill. Whether that be Tower of Adversity, Depths of Elusive Realms, maybe a hologram will do that one day, and any events that have modifiers that do that. As long as the conditions are right and buff you based on if you use a skill, Changli Yao will typically perform very well. He plays very well both in a team and solo, as you can choose to unload all of his damage as fast as possible or extend the duration of his ult state based on how you perform his combos. Both of his skill cooldowns are also very short, being 5 seconds and 7 seconds, with both of them weaving very well into your rotation without much downtime. His liberation is fantastic at both trying to parry and remaining safe. You can try to parry attacks with the initial hit from his ult, but as long as you don't do it too late, if you miss, thanks to the time slow, you can follow up his ult with an ult skill 1 that has a really good parry window. His forte, both inside and outside his liberation, builds really fast, allowing you to dish out some really good damage fairly quickly. His normal dodge counter is super fast and gets all of its damage off in one hit, allowing you to immediately flow right into your next attack. All of his attacks, except for his skill 2 and the last part of his basic attack combo, are all very good at parrying with little to no downtime between attacks. So if you're trying to learn how to parry, he is a great character to start with, as his moves are very forgiving. If you have Yinlin, you already have a really good teammate with a great outro skill, which Changli Yao takes full advantage of. His animations are very tame, not really getting in the way of you seeing what's happening, but are still flashy enough to feel really cool. His skill 2 reposition can be used as a gap closer if an enemy moves away from you or you change targets. Both ult skills move you towards the target, making them great gap closers for when an enemy moves away from you. But with those skills, make sure you have an appropriate distance, as they can miss. However, it's typically pretty hard to get far enough away that they'll miss. His skill 2 and ult skill 1 can both be used to avoid attacks while still doing damage. This is an advantage because it doesn't slow down time like a perfect dodge would, allowing you to maintain DPS uptime if you pick your your moments right. He has a lot of really good options in terms of when it's a good time to swap off, so his value in quick swap teams is fairly high. Some of his abilities slow down the enemy's animations, which can open up pretty large damage windows for your team. This is both a pro and a con, since poorly timed slows can make attacks a lot harder to dodge, making timing important. However, it is an advantage the vast majority of the time, so I'm putting this in the pros. But let's talk about his cons. His skill 1 and skill 2 have different parry windows and can cause you to put yourself in a position to get hit and not have enough reaction time to correct for your mistake. This is pretty easy to adjust for though, so it's not a big issue. If you have bad ping, his forte will build slower, which will technically slow down how fast he can DPS and will sometimes cause you to use the wrong skill accidentally. This isn't really a big issue for me, it happens sometimes, but I imagine people who have really bad ping will often run into this issue. The revamp follow-up attack consumes stamina, and it can drain your stamina pretty fast in some fights. I'll try to find the video, but I actually ran out of stamina against Crownless at one point just from dodging and using my mid-air follow-up attacks, so I had to improvise, which I don't remember going too well. The ground slam attack from the revamp attack locks you out of dodging for slightly longer than it feels like it should. Changli's skill does the same, locking you in the animation for a period of time, but with hers, you can dodge the second you touch the ground. Changli Yao's lasts a little bit longer after you land, so this can get you into trouble if you're not careful. The last con is not really a con, but I'm going to put it here anyway. His rotation, when you look at it as a whole, is pretty simplistic. However, because it has a little bit of variety in it, it's not really noticeable while you're doing it. I'm sure there's more pros and cons for him we could talk about, but these are the things that 1, I've noticed, and 2, I care about. However, one thing I want to touch on is the value of his weapon versus the value of his sequences. As we all know, everyone who gets 6,000 reputation from the event can get a Xiangli Yao for free. But if you're looking to spend some of your premium currency to either get additional copies or get his weapon, and you're wondering which is the better option, in my opinion, his weapon is more valuable to your account than both his S1 and S2 combined for a few reasons. It's a weapon, so it can be migrated onto any future Gauntlet user. It provides a good amount of base attack, it has a crit rate sub, and the passive is very likely to be useful on a lot of characters in future. As long as a character can use their skill in their ult state, they get 48% liberation damage bonus for 13 seconds. If a character doesn't go into a liberation state and instead deals all of their liberation damage in one hit, then the buff having a duration doesn't matter anyway. It also straight up gives you 12% attribute bonus, making it probably the most universal weapon on my account currently. So if you were thinking of either getting another copy of him or his weapon is a much better choice for your account progression. However, if we're talking power for Xiangli Yao, his sequence 1 is very strong, but I would still pick the weapon. So my final thoughts on Xiangli Yao, he's an awesome unit. He plays insanely well, dishes out a lot of damage, has really good animations, but lastly, even though Kuro and anime games in general like their waifus, which don't get me wrong, I do too, it's nice to see good, strong, cool male characters as well. And I'm sure a lot of the female player base are pretty happy with how he looks.
I can't help but imagine what we might do together.
Run me over, Daddy.
What?
Oh, put your big fist up me.
So at the end of the video, I want to say thank you to Kuro Games for not skimping out on his kit. Kuro could have said, since we're giving him away for free, let's take a lot of his kit and lock it behind sequences, or make his weapon change his playstyle so players feel like they need it for him. But instead, they gave us a strong character at S0 that doesn't need anything extra for free. And his weapon is nice to have, but it doesn't unlock a new playstyle for him. Everything that he needs to function, he has inherently in his kit. Xiangli Yao is an awesome character. So at the end of the video, I always like to say if you enjoyed the video, you can leave a like or a comment, but instead you can still leave a like if you enjoyed the video. But if you're just as happy as I am with the 5-star character Kuro gifted to everyone, I would like you to just go down to the comments and say, thank you, Kuro. Kuro Games really does seem to care about their games more than the success. And all I hope is this continues into the future, as Wuthering Waves and PGR are two of the best gacha games I've ever played, because not only do they both play insanely well with more focus on challenging combat, but they also feel very generous to the players. Having said that, if you would like to see more content in future, you can subscribe to the channel. But that will do it from me, so I hope to see you in the next video, and I'll catch yous later.